So yes, Longline Environment. This is a company that I'm associated with. It works in the aquaculture technology space, and so I have a history as well as a university professor in Portugal. So for 35 years, I taught also in environmental context of these kinds of things. One of the things that pushed me towards this kind of activity was really to try and bring products closer to people. And typically also in the context of these kinds of European projects, the types of things that get the project outputs connected with people tend not to be that appealing with respect to the consumers themselves. So in the context of aquaculture, of course, there's a difficulty with respect to consumer acceptance, not so much in terms of what the consumers eat, because very often they're not that aware of the detail of what gets eaten, but more in terms of where food can be produced. And this is, of course, a big problem in the European Union, because it means in the end that we import quite a lot of our food. So we put together a number of products in the context of GAIN to help push this whole thing forward. And Roberto mentioned in the introduction that we worked specifically on a business-to-business product. That's not what I'm going to show you today. What I want to show you, I presume you can all see my screen, right? Is the Good Fish product, which is designed to bring the product closer to the consumer in terms of information. So this is the site that we have registered. What I'm going to show you initially is the back end of the work. So this is where information is stored. So just for clarity, for people who may not have thought about that, everybody uses apps on their phone, but only a relatively small part of what you're actually doing is related to your phone itself. Most of the time, if you're looking at weather or any other types of things, any of the social media platforms, everything is typically working on a server somewhere in the cloud, and the two obviously are speaking to each other. So what I'm going to do now is just go into that side of it, so that you can have a look at what goes on in the back end. This is actually a site that's registered as Good Fish, so it's .sh. It's a domain from the island of Saint Helena, which, as you know, is where Napoleon spent some time, not by choice. But it's interesting because if you go onto the website that describes the island, it belongs to the UK, and the island, as you may know, is a small volcanic island, but its motto is loyal and unshakable. So therefore, they're quite optimistic about their shakeability in the context of their volcanic nature. So when you go onto the platform itself, which is what I'm about to do, this is the first screen that you'll see. There's some things that we're still developing. So behind this, because there's quite a lot of science behind this as well, there is a database at the moment with about 3,000 different food products. Of course, most of them are not fish. And out of the fish, quite a lot of them are not cultivated fish. But so one of the points that I think is important to make is that there are databases for food composition in various parts of the world, and a lot of this material is accessible. The internet has made a lot of these things possible. The UK has got a large database, which is actually the one we're using at the moment, which, as I said, has got about 3,000 food products. And the names of the products that you're seeing here are actually coming out of that database. The United States Department of Agriculture equally has a larger database than the UK. These databases typically are for nutritional purposes, so picking up on what Stefano said, and they have very detailed information on all sorts of constituents, from the proximates, such as the proteins and the carbohydrates and all that kind of thing, to the minerals, to the polyunsaturated fatty acids, or what people normally know as omega-3s or omega-6s, the kind of things that are buzzwords very often for consumers. So the idea here was to develop an application that would read QR codes. Unfortunately, it took a pandemic for everybody to understand what QR codes were and how they were used, but everybody now is quite close to QR codes because they're used in restaurant menus and in many, many other things. But in any case, we were already talking about doing something like this with QR codes back in 2017, as Roberto said, when we were preparing the GAIN project. So the idea is that we can, in connection with supermarkets, focus on fish that are sold fresh, so not packaged products. That's not the intent at the moment. And that means, so in Southern Europe, that's very common. In Northern Europe, it's less common. I think in Southern Europe, people are more aware of the fish that they eat, and they have they may be more demanding in terms of the species and so forth. But that's probably another discussion. But so the idea would be to focus on that segment and also on fish markets. There are now some, not that many, but there are some online retailers as well of fish products. I was on a website, a French website only recently that has quite a list, but this is increasing, and of course restaurants. But here we're talking more high-end restaurants than restaurants with sort of low price and high turnover type of model. So what you see here is just a selection, because as I said, we're working on this, and you can see various species. Most of them are cultivated. I just left sepia cuttlefish in here. So I know your famous sepia di nero in Italy, very nice. It is my sadness that we have to do this online instead of surrounded by some nice food and wine in Venice, but that's life. So I put in one wild species, and the others that you can see here, of course, they exist in the wild, but there's a lot of cultivation. And these two in particular, bass and bream, are very important in terms of production in the Eastern Mediterranean. We're talking about something like 300,000 tons. So essentially what this backend does is it lets you look at more details of the product, which is the same thing that we'll do on the phone just now. Rafaela will do that with me. And it lets you display a QR code, and then it lets you download a QR code, and that's for the supermarkets to do. That can get printed out and then put on a label. And then the idea is that people can rate the product. So what I'm going to do is, if I can just move this to the top so I can see it. I'll just click on this eye icon, because the best way to, so this is, I'm doing this live as you, I mean, not live in the sense that I'm with you, but live in the sense that you're looking at the application itself. So these aren't slides. And that's a good thing, because it means that we have some confidence in the quality of the product, because it's always risky to do these kinds of things with a live audience, with a live product. This is what people see on their cell phones or tablets when they do the scan and they click on the eye there. We also have it on the back end, so I'll just go through it with you just to give you some idea of what we're looking at. The first thing is this issue about what you know about the fish and shellfish that you buy. At the moment, throughout Europe, this is my understanding in every country that I visited, and I'm always curious to look and see what's on the counters. You get the name of the product, and you get told if it was farmed or if it was wild caught. And if it's farmed, you're told what country it was grown in or what country's waters. You're not told whether it was caught at sea or farmed at sea or on land. That information typically isn't there. And if you're buying a wild caught product, you have very little information. Typically, they use the ocean areas that have been defined by the ICES, the International Council for Exploration of the Sea. And they've got names like Northeast Atlantic or Southwest Pacific. These are very large areas, and it doesn't really tell you a lot. And it really only tells you where the fish was caught, of course. It doesn't tell you where the fish lived. So this whole concept of good fish, and these are things that we've been thinking about for quite a while. I think this dovetails very nicely with some of the things Stefano said. So we thought about them with a chef in Bergen called Chris Hattuft, who's got a specialty restaurant that he runs there called Lisverket. In Norwegian, it's unpronounceable for me, but that's how it sounds when you read it the way it's spelt. Roberto, of course, my friend and colleague Johan Johansson from Northern Norway, another colleague called Sean Robinson from DFO in Canada. So we've been thinking about these things for quite a while. The idea is that you have essentially 4 qualities to a good fish, and the fact that it's farmed or the fact that it's wild caught should not be one of those criteria, because often that is a dividing line now. So the first thing here is consumer experience. How does the fish taste? What's the texture like? Are there specialty applications for it? So, for instance, sushi and other types of things. On the nutrition and well-being side, what about the composition? What's it rich in, etc. The sustainability component, is the fish in balance with the environment, or is it that cultivation harmful? Those kinds of criteria are very important, of course, for millennials, for Gen Z generation. And on the final point, which is also very important, again, more for younger people than for older people, I think, but I mean, that's unfortunate, but it's the way it is, which is the animal welfare side. So was that a happy fish? I mean, that's really what it boils down to. So when you scan the QR code, which we're going to do in just a minute, there are 3 things that you can, 3 stages that you can evaluate. The first is when you buy the fish. The second is the confection or the cooking. So again, this speaks a lot to what the previous speakers have said. And the third one is the taste. So in English, the acronym would be ACT, but you could have it in Italian or in Portuguese or in Spanish, any Latin languages with 3 C's. It could be comprare, cucinare, and consumire, or in Portuguese, comprar, cozinhar e consumir, Spanish as well. So the idea is to make these things simple and make them buzzy for consumers, because the consumers are people who are not worried about the detail of the science and all that sort of stuff. So you need to, and they're busy, so you need to give them something that's a little bit appealing. We want to put in something to also let them classify things when they give a bit of the fish to pets. I do that. I have 2 dogs and a cat, and they all quite enjoy farmed bass and bream. And of course, in restaurants, this is slightly different because you pay at the end instead of paying at the beginning. At the back end of this, you have a series of ratings. So these are average ratings that you can see. This has all been done in tests. But you can also go to activities and drill down. Okay, so when you do this, you see a list of classifications. Okay, and so there's 2 classifications here that were done before the meeting started. Somebody decided to give mussels a really bad classification there. I don't know who did that, but it doesn't really matter because those things will happen. If this is designed for supermarkets, then you have a situation where you have this is actually, these are addresses for a chain in Spain and Portugal and other countries called El Corte Inglés, and the second one here is in Spain, although it's the address is a Portuguese name, but it's in Badajoz, and then the first one is in central Lisbon. So as an example, and anybody who's got a cell phone who wants to play around with this, they can do that. Let's try the bream. This is what the QR code looks like. This is what would be downloaded over here and printed and go onto the supermarket. And Rafaela, if you don't mind, can you try and scan it? I'm going to try and do the same thing. So you just use the camera on the phone, and anybody else who wants to play around with this can do that. And as soon as the phone recognizes the code, so mine has already got that, you should get a quick good fish screen, and then you get a picture of the fish. You've got that, Rafaela, right? You got a picture of the fish, and then it says description, and it's got a thing called read more. If you tap read more, this is only a placeholder, what you've got there. Behind this, as I said, sits a database in the cloud with at the moment 3,000 different presentations, so not 3,000 different species, but 3,000 different presentations. Since it's an English database, just the curry section has got about 70 entries, which made me smile. But you can see some of the descriptions there and the way we're going with this. So things like what are the elements that are important there, the well-being. There's an example there for bone formation and for blood sugar, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then for older people who worry more about health, of course, than younger people, things like what it's good for. Is it good for arthritis? Is it good for your eyesight? That kind of thing. The conservation status is something, again, that Stefano brought up. I would say that because Stefano's presentation mentioned fishing and didn't mention aquaculture, I would quote what one of my English friends usually says, that the best way to conserve fish is not to fish them. So there's quite a good argument for aquaculture there. So then the last thing that we want people to do, which is what Rafaela either has done already or will do, is to rate the product. And if Rafaela, if you could do that, then
yes.
There's three stages there, as I said. This is the ACT idea.
Okay, when I enter with the QR code, I see the image of mussels and information about consumer experience, nutrition and health, environmental sustainability, and animal welfare. So that after that, I can see a button with that invite to rate.
Yeah.
So clicking on edit rating.
Yes, but can you do it with the QR code you have in front of you? You should see a picture of a fish now, because the mussel is what you rated before we started.
Okay, so
do you not see a fish now?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you shouldn't have to edit. The reason that it's asking you to edit the other one is because it wouldn't like you to keep adding ratings for something you've already done. But you should be able to rate this one as a new.
I see a bream.
Yeah. And then you should see the rate it button. Yeah.
Yeah. So rate.
Yeah. And now you give this one a score. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So
okay. I rate by chance. I don't think a lot about.
No, don't think a lot. It's just, I mean, this is where I'm just demonstrating how it works, you know.
I rate 2, 4, and 3.
Okay, well, let's see if we can find that on this side. Okay, so on the activities here, we've got the mussels. I'm just going to press F5 on my computer to refresh, because we should see Rafaela's rating on there now. There you go, 2, 4, and 3. So you told the truth. Okay, so this is so this is Rafaela's rating at 10:20 my time, because I'm speaking to you from Lisbon in Portugal, 11:20 your time. Okay, and so this is typically what's going to happen when this thing starts to roll out to supermarkets, and on the back end, that's what people will see. I don't have anything else to show you. I just wanted to sort of demonstrate that, you know, what the concept is and that it works. And, you know, hopefully one of these days, you're going to start seeing this in a supermarket near you. The only other thing I think I'd say before I close the share is that obviously we're going to roll this out in different languages. This is not, you know, it's we're testing it in English, but it is already designed to be able to be translated into various languages. So these descriptions have to be obviously tuned to what the customer speaks and to what they understand. Okay, thank you very much for your attention on this.